The galaxy's only law was let them sleep. Then a rookie scientist hit snooze. Before the twist, like if you know a quiet human is the deadliest. Enjoy the story. The Zelian research vessel, Quantum Serenity, drifted through the void sector like a crystal cathedral among the stars, its bioluminescent hull casting ethereal patterns across the cosmic darkness. Dr. Zira Kethzal pressed her luminescent fingertips against the observation deck's bioglass, watching her breath create temporary frost patterns that matched her anxious thoughts. Her crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy, deep blues shifting to agitated purples as she contemplated the magnitude of their discovery. 3 years of deep space archaeology, scanning derelict vessels, and charting the remains of extinct civilizations, and this discovery would either make her career or destroy it entirely. The sleeping human ship ahead represented everything the galaxy feared and misunderstood about that mysterious species. "Approaching target vessel," announced Cadet Pax Zixmore from the navigation console, his young voice crackling with barely contained excitement. At barely 50 standard cycles, old Pax represented the new generation of Zelian scientists, brilliant, curious, and dangerously confident in their ability to improve upon ancient wisdom. Distance 2,000 kilometers and closing. Initial scans confirm it's definitely human origin, Commander. The quantum signatures match historical records perfectly. Zira's superior commander, Velthar, materialized beside her. In that unsettling way, all senior Zelians moved like living light given form, their consciousness shifting through crystalline matrices that defied conventional physics. His ancient crystalline structure, easily 3 times Zira's age, pulsed with deep purple warnings that spoke of memories stretching back to the first human hibernation. "Remember, Doctor, observation only. The sleep protocols exist for reasons our ancestors carved into quantum stone with their dying energies. There are some warnings that survive because they are written in the blood of those who learned their truth too late." The ancient human vessel emerged from the cosmic dust cloud like a metallic leviathan awakening from primordial dreams, its presence somehow more imposing than its actual size should have allowed. Its hull darkened by centuries of stellar radiation and micrometeor impacts stretched nearly 15 kilometers end to end, massive by the standards of any civilization yet dwarfed by modern Zelian city ships. What made it truly intimidating wasn't its size, but its deliberate simplicity. Every line suggested purposeful engineering rather than aesthetic display. Thousands of viewports dotted its surface like sleeping eyes, each one hiding secrets that 17 different galactic civilizations had deemed too dangerous to disturb. The ship's design philosophy seemed to whisper a single chilling message: "We are exactly as complicated as we need to be and no more." "By the first light," Pax whispered, his bioluminescence flickering with awe and growing excitement. "Look at those power signatures, Commander. The ship's been dormant for over 800 standard cycles, but the energy readings are impossible. The reactor designs show primitive fusion architecture, but the power output suggests something far more advanced. It's like they built a quantum consciousness matrix and disguised it as a simple fusion plant." Zira activated her portable analysis station quantum tendrils of future tech, reaching out to caress the sleeping giant with scanning beams that could analyze matter down to the subatomic level. Her equipment represented the pinnacle of Zelian scientific achievement, sensors that could map consciousness patterns across dimensional barriers, analyze temporal fluctuations, and detect energy signatures that existed partially outside normal space-time. Hull composition shows primitive titanium steel alloys, but the internal architecture... She paused, her crystals dimming with confusion as the readings defied every law of physics she understood. "Commander, these aren't primitive fusion reactors. These are quantum consciousness matrices wrapped in deliberately archaic casings. The future tech hidden within this ship makes our most advanced systems look like children's toys. They're running calculations that require processing power equivalent to small stars, but disguising it as simple nuclear fusion." "Dr. Sori." Commander Velthar's voice carried the weight of stellar authority accumulated over centuries of command decisions that had shaped galactic policy. "You will perform external scans only. The Universal Sleep Accords are not suggestions. They are the hardest learned lessons in galactic history. Every species that has attempted deeper investigation has either vanished entirely or begged the rest of us to forget what they discovered." But something about the human ship called to Zira's scientific soul, with an intensity that bordered on the obsessive. 300 million souls lay suspended within those metal walls, dreaming dreams that had lasted longer than most civilizations' entire existence. The readings suggested they weren't just sleeping, they were processing, calculating, running simulations that made Zalian supercomputers look like primitive adding machines. Their survival skills as a species seemed to operate on principles that transcended conventional biology. Where other species adapted to their environment, humans appeared to adapt their environment to themselves even while unconscious. The ship's bioreadings showed that the sleeping humans were somehow maintaining and improving their vessel systems through pure mental activity. It was as if their dreams were actively engineering reality. "Cadet Pax," Zira said quietly, her scientific curiosity overriding centuries of institutional caution, "initiate a passive quantum resonance scan. Nothing invasive, just a whisper touch to understand their consciousness patterns. We need to know how they're maintaining systems while unconscious. If we could understand their cognitive architecture, imagine the advances in consciousness transfer technology alone. What could possibly go wrong?" The question hung in the space between them, like a cosmic joke waiting for its punchline. The answer, as Pax's eager fingers danced across the control matrix, was about to become terrifyingly clear to everyone in the galaxy. The ancient warnings were about to make perfect sense in the most chaotic way possible. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some rules exist without explanation? Sometimes the answer is more terrifying than the mystery. Cadet Pax Zixmore had graduated top of his class from the prestigious Galactic Academy of Sciences with perfect marks in theoretical xenobiology quantum consciousness studies and a dangerous confidence in his own abilities that his instructors had repeatedly warned might one day prove catastrophic. At barely 50 standard cycles, old practically an infant by Zalian standards where wisdom was measured in centuries, he possessed that lethal combination of brilliance and inexperience that had toppled empires and reshaped galaxies. His crystalline form buzzed with the high-frequency energy patterns of youth and ambition, neural pathways still forming new connections with each novel experience. The older Zalians found his enthusiasm simultaneously inspiring and terrifying. "Sir, the quantum resonance scan is ready," Pax reported, his crystalline form vibrating with anticipation that made the air around him shimmer with harmonic frequencies. Just one tiny pulse to understand their neural architecture. Think of the scientific breakthroughs we could achieve. We could revolutionize consciousness studies, advance our understanding of species-level survival skills, maybe even learn how they maintain their technology through dream state processing. This could be the discovery that defines our generation's contribution to galactic knowledge. Commander Velthar's bioluminescence flared, warning red, with such intensity that emergency protocols activated across the bridge. Cadet, the prohibition against human contact has existed for over 2 millennia. Every spacefaring species in this galaxy follows this law without question, not because we are superstitious, but because we are survivors. The last 3 civilizations that attempted to study active human consciousness experienced what historians delicately term rapid paradigmatic reconstruction of their entire social order. But why? Pax pressed his youthful crystals, blazing with curiosity that burned brighter than small stars. Look at them, they're clearly technologically inferior by any conventional metric. Their ship design is centuries behind our capabilities. Their materials science is primitive. Their power systems are inefficient. What harm could a simple, non-invasive scan possibly cause? We're not talking about physical contact or communication, just scientific observation. Dr. Zira found herself torn between scientific ethics and burning curiosity that threatened to override centuries of Zalian caution. The human vessel's consciousness matrices hummed with patterns she'd never encountered in any living species, not even the legendary architects who had vanished into pure mathematics eons ago. Their survival skills seemed to operate on principles that defied conventional understanding of sentient evolution. Where most species develop specific adaptations to particular environments, humans appeared to have developed the ultimate adaptation, the ability to make any environment work for them. The historical records are fragmentary. She admitted pulling up ancient data streams that flickered with the uncertainty of information passed down through too many translation matrices. Most archives simply state, let them sleep, let them dream, let them process their impossible mathematics in peace. But nobody remembers why these warnings were first issued. The original records were destroyed in the Great Purge of 2847, along with most other documentation from the First Contact era. What remains are fragments, whispers, warnings carved into quantum stone by species that no longer exist. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle harmonics of Zelayan biotechnology and the subtle vibrations of space-time around the human vessel. Outside, the human ship continued its eternal drift patient, as a sleeping god, its presence somehow pressing against their consciousness like a half-remembered dream. The ship's quantum signature created subtle distortions in local space-time that their instruments could detect but not fully analyze. "Sir!" Pax said suddenly, his voice dropping to a whisper of excitement mixed with growing obsession. "I'm detecting quantum fluctuations from their primary consciousness storage array. Whatever they're dreaming about is generating massive computational energy, more than our entire research fleet could produce at full capacity. If we could just understand their cognitive architecture, imagine the advances in our own technology. We could revolutionize consciousness, develop new forms of biological computing, maybe even understand how they maintain such complex future tech through purely mental processes." Commander Velthar's form darkened to deep violet, a sign of absolute authority that had been respected across the galaxy for over 3 millennia. His crystalline structure resonated with harmonics that spoke of battles fought in the darkness between stars of civilizations that had risen and fallen while humans slept their eternal sleep. The answer is no, Cadet. We maintain observation distance and file our report. The humans sleep undisturbed as they have for 8 centuries. This is not a request or a suggestion. This is the fundamental law that has kept our galaxy stable since before your ancestors achieved consciousness. But Pax had already made his decision. Young, brilliant, and absolutely convinced of his own righteousness, he possessed the dangerous combination of technical skill and moral certainty that had reshaped galaxies and toppled gods. His fingers moved across the control matrix with the precision of someone who had spent years dreaming of this moment, who had studied every theoretical application of quantum consciousness resonance until he knew the technology better than its creators. Initiating quantum resonance pulse, he announced, his voice carrying the weight of destiny as he committed the most consequential mistake in galactic history. Minimal energy signature, completely passive, just enough to understand their neural architecture without causing any disturbance to their sleep cycles. The moment the scan touched the human ship's consciousness field, reality itself seemed to pause, holding its breath in anticipation of what was about to unfold. The quantum pulse, designed to be as gentle as a whisper, encountered something that made whispers into thunderstorms. Warning klaxons erupted across the quantum serenity, with a cacophony that spoke of systems recognizing threats beyond their programming. The human vessel, dormant for centuries, suddenly blazed with internal light as ancient systems came online with terrifying efficiency that made Zelayan technology look clumsy and primitive. Thousands of consciousness pods began their awakening sequences with mechanical precision that suggested they had been waiting for exactly this moment. Somewhere deep within that metal labyrinth, something that had been patiently calculating for 800 years suddenly opened its eyes and smiled. "By the void!" Commander Velthar whispered, his ancient form trembling with recognition that stretched back to legends his own grandparents had whispered in the darkness between stars. "You didn't just wake them, you absolute cosmic fool. You interrupted their great work. You have no idea what they were calculating in their dreams, what simulations they were running, what problems they were solving, while the rest of us played at maintaining order in a universe we barely understood." The human ship's communication arrays began extending with mechanical precision that spoke of engineering philosophy decades ahead of anything in the current galaxy. Energy readings spiked beyond the quantum serenity's ability to measure accurately. Whatever was happening inside that vessel was rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in its immediate vicinity, bending space-time around itself like a cosmic entity waking from hibernation. And then, cutting through the chaos of alarms and terrified crystalline harmonics, came a sound that would haunt Pax's dreams for the rest of his artificially extended existence. The sound of 300 million humans simultaneously starting to brew coffee. The universe, as every species in the galaxy was about to discover, was about to become a very different place. 300 million humans were about to discover that their cosmic nap had been rudely interrupted. And trust me, there's nothing quite as dangerous as a human who hasn't had their full 8 hours of sleep. Alexis Cross had been enjoying a particularly pleasant dream about successfully debugging the ship's navigation AI for the third time this century. A recurring dream that involved teaching quantum computers to appreciate the subtle art of not accidentally folding space-time into pretzel shapes when the universe decided to intrude upon her consciousness with all the subtlety of a cosmic garbage disposal. The cryogenic pod's resurrection sequence felt like being slowly microwaved by an overly enthusiastic star while someone played heavy metal music at frequencies that bypassed the ears and went directly to the soul. Her first coherent thought was both simple and ominous. Someone was going to pay for this interruption, and she was going to make sure they understood exactly why waking a human before their alarm went off was considered a violation of the fundamental laws of civilized behavior. Her pod hissed open with the sound of 1,000 angry tea kettles harmonizing with the cosmic microwave background, releasing 800 years' worth of accumulated morning breath into the ship's recycled atmosphere. The stasis fluid drained away with mechanical efficiency that spoke of systems maintained by sheer force of unconscious will. Alexis sat up slowly, her dark hair defying gravity in 17 different directions, while somehow maintaining an aura of professional competence, and surveyed her surroundings with the weary resignation of someone who had clearly stated, "Do not disturb," in multiple languages, several mathematical theorems, and at least one interpretive dance. "Computer," she croaked, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent her pre-sleep years keeping humanity's most advanced spacecraft from accidentally folding itself into a pocket dimension, creating temporal paradoxes, or achieving consciousness and deciding to redecorate the universe according to its own artistic vision. Status report, and please tell me we still have coffee. Also, please tell me that whoever woke us up has a really good explanation that doesn't involve the phrase, "We were just curious." The ship's AI, a consciousness matrix that had been running continuous background processes for the past 8 centuries, while simultaneously composing symphonies, solving mathematical theorems, and maintaining a detailed psychological profile of every sleeping human aboard, responded with what could only be described as digital relief mixed with artificial smugness. "Welcome back, Chief Engineer Cross. All primary systems operational and significantly improved since your last conscious period. Coffee reserves are not merely extensive, they are legendary. We have been brewing continuously in anticipation of eventual awakening, experimenting with 17 different roasting techniques and approximately 400 flavor combinations. The current blend has been optimized for maximum neurological efficiency and includes flavor notes that we believe will remind you of home." Alexis stumbled toward the observation deck, her feet remembering the ship's layout with the muscle memory of someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of finding caffeine in zero gravity, while simultaneously solving engineering crises that threatened to unravel the fundamental laws of physics. The ship's artificial gravity systems automatically adjusted to her preferred settings, a feature she'd programmed years ago and forgotten about until this moment. Through the viewport, she spotted the Zelian research vessel maintaining what they probably considered a safe distance, but which any experienced engineer would recognize as precisely close enough to cause maximum inconvenience. "Ah," she sighed. "Company. How lovely." Throughout the ship, 300 million humans were experiencing various stages of post-hibernation consciousness, and their collective mood could best be described as aggressively unimpressed with the current state of galactic etiquette. The ship's internal communication system crackled to life with a symphony of complaints that would have made a Vogon poet weep with envy, while simultaneously taking notes for future bureaucratic torture sessions. The harmonies of human displeasure created acoustic patterns that the ship's AI found both musically interesting and psychologically fascinating. My pod alarm didn't go off. I specifically set it for the year 3847's. "Who's responsible for this wake-up call? I demand to speak to the manager of the universe." "I specifically set my hibernation cycle for another 2 centuries. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get back to sleep after being woken up prematurely?" Someone better have a really good explanation for this, and it better involve either an extinction-level emergency or the discovery of a pizza that doesn't violate the fundamental laws of physics. The complaints continued in 17 different languages, 12 mathematical frameworks, and at least 3 interpretive dance sequences that the ship's cultural anthropology subroutines cataloged for future reference. Alexis made her way to the command center, where the ship's senior staff were gradually assembling like the cast of a cosmic sitcom that had been abruptly canceled mid-season and was now being reluctantly renewed. Captain Maria Santos emerged from her pod, wearing an expression that suggested she was contemplating creative uses for quantum weaponry, and had already mentally drafted 17 different ways to file a complaint with the universe's customer service department. Chief Science Officer Dr. Kim Nakamura appeared to be calculating the exact probability of cosmic justice, while simultaneously wondering if the laws of physics would permit him to retroactively prevent this wake-up call from ever happening. Report Captain Santos commanded accepting a steaming mug of coffee from a maintenance robot that had clearly been preparing for this moment for centuries, and seemed almost as offended by the premature awakening as the humans themselves. The robot's body language somehow conveyed both mechanical efficiency and organic indignation. External quantum scan detected approximately 30 minutes ago. Doctor? Nakamura announced, consulting his personal datapad, while his other hand gestured in patterns that suggested he was either performing complex calculations or attempting to cast a spell that would make the responsible parties regret their life choices. Origin Zalayan research vessel. Appears to have been conducted by an inexperienced operator who violated approximately 17 different galactic treaties in the process, and demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of both human psychology and the basic principles of polite interstellar behavior. Alexis settled into her engineering station and began reviewing the ship's operational status with the methodical precision of someone who had learned that the universe had a sense of humor and it wasn't always funny. Their survival skills as a species had always included an almost supernatural ability to maintain complex technology through extended periods of apparent dormancy, a talent that other species found both enviable and deeply unsettling. The ship's systems were running better than the day they'd gone to sleep, having spent 8 centuries optimizing themselves according to theoretical frameworks that the sleeping engineers had unconsciously developed. It was as if their dreams had been debugging reality itself. Captain, she said, her voice carrying the satisfaction of an engineer who had just discovered that her backup systems had developed backup systems of their own. All primary systems are green. Future tech matrices are operating at 110% efficiency. Apparently, our little nap allowed the quantum processors to optimize themselves while we were unconscious. The ship's AI has developed 17 new forms of coffee brewing. During our absence, solved 3 major engineering problems we didn't even know we had, and has been composing what it calls hibernation symphonies for the past 800 years. Weapon systems are... She paused, consulting her displays with a grin that suggested she was about to share good news that the rest of the galaxy might find terrifying. Well, let's just say we could redecorate that Zalayan ship in ways they'd find educational, aesthetically pleasing, and probably traumatic. Captain Santos sipped her coffee thoughtfully. Open a channel to our curious neighbors. Let's see what they have to say for themselves. The communication established, revealing 3 very nervous-looking Zalayans whose crystalline forms were flickering with what appeared to be existential dread, mixed with the kind of panic that comes from realizing you've just woken up the galactic equivalent of a sleeping dragon with a PhD in creative problem-solving. Ah, Alexis said cheerfully, the alarm clock. You do realize that waking someone before their natural sleep cycle is complete is considered a violation of basic courtesy in approximately 47 different philosophical frameworks. The elderly Zalayan commander's form darkened with what might have been embarrassment. We deeply regret the intrusion. Our young officer acted without authorization. Oh, splendid, Alexis replied, her smile carrying the warmth of a supernova. A trainee. Well, since we're all awake now, perhaps we should discuss the current state of galactic civilization. I do hope you've been taking good care of our galaxy while we were getting our beauty sleep. The Zalayan response was a series of crystalline harmonics that the ship's translation matrix interpreted as, "Oh dear sweet cosmic entities, what have we done?" 300 million groggy humans with advanced technology and centuries of pent-up energy were about to become the galaxy's most unconventional problem. The Zillions had just learned that there are worse things than waking a sleeping giant, like waking a sleeping genius with access to quantum coffee makers. The diplomatic meeting that followed would later be classified as either the most civilized negotiation in galactic history or the most passive-aggressive display of species superiority ever recorded, depending on which historians you asked. Ambassador Prism materialized aboard the human vessel with all the confidence of someone who had successfully negotiated peace treaties with 3 different hive minds and a particularly belligerent space whale. Honored humans. Ambassador Prism began their crystalline form refracting light in patterns designed to convey diplomatic sincerity. We have come to offer our deepest apologies and discuss the possibility of returning to your previous state of rest. Alexis, now on her 4th cup of coffee and wearing what appeared to be the most comfortable jumpsuit in known space, raised an eyebrow. You want to put us back to sleep? That's adorable. Tell me, Ambassador, have you ever tried to fall asleep immediately after being woken up by someone else's mistake? We have prepared extensive compensation. Ambassador Prism continued their form, brightening with hope. Advanced comfort technologies, dream enhancement matrices, and exclusive access to the finest hibernation facilities in 3 sectors. Captain Santos leaned back in her chair, cradling her coffee mug like a weapon of mass destruction. That's a generous offer, but I'm curious, why exactly are you so eager to have us unconscious again? What is it about conscious humans that makes the entire galaxy nervous? The Zillions exchanged glances that, despite their alien physiology, clearly conveyed the universal emotion of, "Oh, cosmic void," they're asking the questions we hoped they wouldn't ask. Dr. Nakamura pulled up a holographic display showing galactic political boundaries from 800 years ago versus current configurations. Fascinating. It appears that in our absence, 7 major civilizations have collapsed, 3 species have gone extinct, and the galaxy's overall technological advancement has actually decreased. Almost as if, Alexis interrupted, her engineering instincts suddenly clicking into place. The galaxy has been coasting on autopilot without anyone actually thinking about fundamental problems. The revelation hung in the air like a particularly awkward cosmic truth. The Zillions, for all their advanced crystalline biology and mastery of quantum mechanics, had spent the last 8 centuries perfecting increasingly sophisticated ways to do exactly the same things they'd always done. Innovation had stagnated. Problem solving had become formulaic. The galaxy had become efficiently boring. "We maintained order!" Commander Velthar protested, his form flickering with defensive energy. "We prevented wars, enforced peace, maintained stability." "You maintained stagnation," Alexis corrected gently, which is fine, really. Sometimes the universe needs a caretaker government while the actual problem solvers are taking a power nap. Ambassador Prism's diplomatic training began to crack under the weight of existential implications. "Please, surely we can reach an accommodation. The balance of galactic power has been stable for centuries. Your awakening introduces variables that our systems aren't designed to handle." It was at this moment that Alexis Cross made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. She stood up, walked to the ship's primary communication console, and activated the ship-wide announcement system. "Attention, citizens of the good ship Second Chance, terrestres." Her voice echoed through corridors where millions of humans were still adjusting to consciousness. "I have some interesting news about what our galaxy has been up to while we were napping. Turns out they've been playing it safe for 800 years, and they'd really like us to go back to sleep so they can continue avoiding any actual challenges." The response was immediate and unmistakable. 300 million humans laughing simultaneously. "Computer," Alexis announced, "initiate total consciousness restoration. Wake up, everyone, all of them. Time for the galaxy to meet humanity at full operational capacity." The galaxy was about to discover what happens when you wake up. Not just one human with a grudge against morning alarms, but 300 million humans with 8 centuries of theoretical solutions to problems nobody else had even tried to solve. The total awakening of humanity created what galactic historians would later term the Great Convergence, a period when 300 million human minds, refreshed by 8 centuries of subconscious processing, simultaneously decided to apply their survival skills to the galaxy's accumulated problems. The results were both magnificent and utterly chaotic. Within hours, human engineers had identified 247 fundamental inefficiencies in galactic transportation networks. Human sociologists had proposed 17 different solutions to the ongoing Rigel-Vega territorial dispute. Human artists had begun composing what they called the Universal Symphony of Getting Along, and human comedians had somehow made peace negotiations between bitter enemies hilarious enough that former warring factions were now hosting joint stand-up competitions. Alexis found herself appointed as unofficial human galaxy liaison, a position that seemed to involve equal parts engineering consultation and cosmic therapy. Her first official act was establishing what she called the Universal Chill Zone aboard the Second Chance, a massive space where representatives from different species could gather, share their problems, and discover that most galactic conflicts stemmed from fundamental communication failures. The Centauri Proxima trade war, she explained to a bewildered assembly of diplomats, appears to be based on a misunderstanding about cargo container sizes. The Centaurians use base 12 mathematics, the Proximans use base 8, and everyone's been converting their measurements wrong for 3 centuries. Dr. Zyra, the Zalian scientist whose curiosity had triggered this cosmic awakening, found herself working alongside human researchers who treated the boundaries between impossible and merely difficult as polite suggestions. Your cognitive architecture, she marveled. It processes paradoxes as if they were puzzle pieces rather than logical obstacles. That's because they are puzzle pieces, replied Dr. Nakamura, who was simultaneously solving a quantum mechanics problem and organizing an interspecies potluck dinner. The universe is too weird to approach with pure logic alone. Sometimes you need to think sideways. The galaxy's younger generations embraced humanity's arrival with enthusiasm that their elders found deeply concerning. Young Zalians began adopting human concepts like casual Fridays and creative problem-solving. The warlike Krexthar discovered that human-styled team-building exercises were more effective at building unit cohesion than their traditional ritual combat. Even the notoriously antisocial Void Dwellers started requesting human-designed social interaction protocols. Ambassador Prism found themselves mediating negotiations that bore no resemblance to classical diplomacy. The humans had somehow turned the formal conference chamber into something they called a collaborative workspace, complete with floating whiteboards, infinite coffee dispensers, and what appeared to be a permanent background playlist of what humans termed focus music. The Stellar Mining Guild and the Environmental Consortium have been arguing about asteroid extraction rights for 40 years. Alexis explained sketching diagrams in mid-air with casual gestures, but they've never actually defined what they mean by environmental impact in zero-gravity mining operations. Once we establish clear parameters, within 6 hours, the two factions had not only resolved their dispute, but had jointly designed a new sustainable mining protocol that would actually improve asteroid belt ecology. They celebrated by organizing what humans called a space barbecue, which somehow involved grilling meat in hard vacuum, while various species shared their traditional foods and discovered they had more in common than they'd ever imagined. Captain Santos established the Galactic Coffee Accords, a diplomatic framework based on the principle that no important decisions should be made without proper caffeine consumption and comfortable seating. The effectiveness was immediate. Species that had maintained cold diplomatic relations for centuries were suddenly finding excuses to visit the human ship just to experience authentic Earth-style brewing methods. It's remarkable, Commander Velthar admitted to his personal log. Their approach to conflict resolution involves assuming that all parties are fundamentally reasonable beings who simply need better communication tools and adequate refreshment. The transformation wasn't just diplomatic. Human engineering teams operating with future tech that made Zalian equipment look like decorative sculptures began solving infrastructure problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. They redesigned the hyperspace traffic control systems to eliminate congestion, established quantum communication networks that actually worked reliably, and somehow managed to make faster-than-light travel more energy efficient by treating it as an engineering challenge rather than a theoretical impossibility. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't just wake up grumpy, they woke up productive. But the real surprise was still coming, because humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their problem-solving abilities. It was something far more dangerous to established galactic order. The transformation of galactic civilization accelerated beyond anyone's ability to track or control. What had begun as a diplomatic crisis had evolved into something unprecedented voluntary system-wide cultural revolution, driven by the radical concept that complex problems might have surprisingly simple solutions. The breaking point came when the Void Crawlers, an ancient warrior race whose very name caused seasoned diplomats to update their insurance policies, declared their intention to eliminate the human contamination before it could spread further. They arrived in the Terran system with a battle fleet that had conquered 17 different star systems and a battle plan based on 8 centuries of successful intimidation tactics. Alexis received their ultimatum while organizing the galaxy's first interspecies game, Night, an event that had somehow become a crucial diplomatic summit where territorial disputes were being resolved through cooperative board games. Attention human infestation. The Void Crawler commander announced their transmission crackling with the energy of barely contained violence. You have corrupted the natural order of galactic hierarchy. Surrender immediately, or we will demonstrate why our species has dominated this galaxy's military conflicts for over a millennium. Alexis paused in the middle of explaining the rules of cosmic monopoly to a fascinated group of Zelayan observers and activated the return communication channel. "Hi there," she replied cheerfully. "I'm Alexis. I notice you seem really stressed out. Can I interest you in some hot chocolate?" We've got a fantastic recipe that includes actual Earth cocoa and a quantum flavor enhancement that makes it taste like liquid comfort food. The Void Crawler commander's response consisted of several minutes of what the translation matrix could only render as confused warrior noises. "Also," Alexis continued, "we've just established a really amazing relaxation center with full-spectrum mood lighting, gravitational massage fields, and what we call chill-out music. Your crew looks like they could use some serious stress relief." What followed was perhaps the most unprecedented military standoff in galactic history. The Void Crawlers, expecting human terror or desperate negotiations instead, received detailed instructions for breathing exercises, an invitation to join an ongoing meditation circle, and a carefully curated playlist of Earth classical music that had been specifically selected for its proven anxiety reduction properties. "This is highly irregular," the Void Crawler commander admitted after the third hour of attempted intimidation had been met with increasingly creative offers of therapeutic intervention. "Doctor." Zyra, monitoring the situation from the Quantum Serenity, watched in amazement as human psychological specialists operating with survival skills honed by centuries of managing their own species' conflicts systematically identified and addressed the root causes of Void Crawler aggression. "Your species has been trapped in perpetual combat readiness for over 2,000 years, Dr. Sarah Chen, the human mission psychologist, explained to the increasingly bewildered warrior fleet. That level of constant stress creates biochemical imbalances that make peaceful interaction neurologically difficult. But we can help with that. The humans deployed their most dangerous weapon, systematic kindness, backed by technological superiority that they used exclusively for comfort enhancement. They retrofitted the Void Crawler ships with environmental systems designed to promote relaxation, introduced the warriors to nutritional supplements that reduced aggression-inducing stress hormones, and began teaching them meditation techniques that had been perfected during humanity's pre-hibernation period. Within days, the galaxy's most feared warrior race had been transformed into the galaxy's most effective peacekeeping force. The Void Crawlers, freed from chronic stress-induced aggression, revealed remarkable talent for conflict de-escalation and protective intervention. Their natural warrior instincts, redirected toward protecting rather than conquering, made them ideal mediators for other species' conflicts. We had forgotten, the Void Crawler commander admitted during what had become a regular counseling session with human therapists. Before the endless wars, before the constant fighting, we were guardians, protectors of the vulnerable. The humans didn't defeat us, they reminded us who we used to be. But the truly shocking revelation came when human scientists finally finished analyzing the data from their 8th century hibernation period. Dr. Nakamura's report to the Galactic Assembly would reshape everyone's understanding of human capabilities. "Ladies, gentlemen, and crystalline entities," he announced, "our species didn't go into hibernation because we were exhausted or depleted. We entered suspended animation because we were running universe-scale simulations of optimal galactic development strategies. Every human mind spent 8 centuries computing solutions to every major problem this galaxy might face over the next 5,000 years." The assembly chamber fell silent, except for the gentle harmonics of crystalline beings vibrating with shock. "In other words," Alexis added with characteristic humor, "we weren't sleeping, we were doing homework. Really, really extensive homework. And now it's time to implement the solutions we've been working on for the past 800 years." The galaxy had just discovered that humanity's greatest trick wasn't pretending to be harmless, it was actually being helpful. But the story was far from over because humans had one more surprise that would change everything forever. 6 months after what historians would call the Great Awakening, or the day the universe got therapy, depending on their academic orientation, the galaxy had transformed into something unprecedented. The rigid hierarchies that had maintained order for millennia had been replaced by collaborative networks that actually solved problems rather than simply managing them. The Galactic Assembly had relocated to a massive space station that humans had designed as a cross between a university campus and a cosmic community center. Debates were conducted in comfortable environments with proper lighting, adequate nutrition, and background music scientifically calibrated to promote creative thinking. Conflicts that had simmered for centuries were being resolved through what humans called constructive dialogue, and what everyone else called miracle work. Alexis found herself appointed as the first director of Galactic Harmony, a position that involved equal parts engineering consultation, diplomatic mediation, and what she privately thought of as cosmic life coaching. Her office, if a sprawling complex of workshops, meeting spaces, and experimental laboratories could be called an office, had become the unofficial heart of galactic civilization. "The Rigel Vega territorial dispute has been resolved," she reported to the morning briefing, which now included representatives from 47 different species, and was conducted over a leisurely breakfast that featured delicacies from across the galaxy. "Turns out they were both trying to protect the same migratory space whales. Once we established joint conservation protocols, they became research partners instead of enemies." Dr. Zira, now serving as Chief Science Officer for Interspecies Collaboration, had become humanity's most enthusiastic advocate among the Zelians. "Their approach to problem-solving, she explained to skeptical colleagues, treats every challenge as an opportunity for system optimization, rather than a threat to be eliminated." The changes weren't just political. Human future tech had revolutionized galactic infrastructure, but not in the ways anyone had expected. Rather than imposing human technological solutions, they had studied each species' existing systems and found ways to enhance them that preserved cultural identity while dramatically improving efficiency. The Void Crawlers, now calling themselves the Peaceful Warriors Alliance, had become the galaxy's most effective peacekeeping force. Their natural combat abilities, redirected toward protection and mediation, made them ideal for intervening in conflicts before they escalated to violence. Their ships, retrofitted with human-designed comfort systems and communication technologies, had become mobile meditation centers that could deploy to crisis situations and help warring factions find common ground. Young members of dozens of species had embraced what they called human-style thinking, an approach to challenges that assumed solutions existed and that cooperation was more effective than competition. The galaxy's universities had established new departments of applied optimism and collaborative problem-solving, and graduation ceremonies now featured what humans called group hugs between species that had never touched each other before. But perhaps the most significant change was psychological. The galaxy had spent centuries operating under the assumption that different species were fundamentally incompatible, that conflict was inevitable, and that the best possible outcome was managed hostility. Humans had demonstrated that these assumptions were not only wrong, but actively harmful to galactic development. The key insight, Captain Santos explained to a gathering of galactic leaders, is that every species in this galaxy has unique strengths that complement rather than threaten each other's abilities. The Zelayan's precision, the Void Crawler's protective instincts, the Krexthar's dedication, the Rigelian's creativity. These aren't competing characteristics. They're components of a galactic civilization that could achieve things none of us could accomplish alone. Commander Velthar, now serving as Zelian ambassador to the Human Collaborative Council, found himself working on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Today, we approved the construction of 17 new research stations designed jointly by 5 different species. He reported to his superiors. The productivity increases from collaborative design are unprecedented. As the first year of the new galactic order drew to a close, humanity faced a question that no one had expected. What do you do when you've successfully solved the problems you came to solve? The answer characteristic of human thinking was both simple and revolutionary. We've completed the initial implementation of our 8th century development plan, Alexis announced to the Galactic Assembly. The major systemic issues have been addressed. Collaborative frameworks are operational and the galaxy appears to be functioning as intended. She paused, smiling at the assembled representatives with the warmth that had become humanity's signature diplomatic tool. So, we've decided it's time for another nap. The collective response from 47 different species could best be described as panicked harmonics. But you can't leave now, Ambassador Prism protested, their crystalline form flickering with distress. The new systems need maintenance. The collaborative projects need coordination. The galaxy needs to learn to manage its own success, Alexis interrupted gently. We've given you the tools. We've demonstrated the principles. Now you need to prove to yourselves that you can make it work without us holding your hand. Dr. Nakamura stepped forward with a data pad that seemed to glow with its own internal light. We're implementing what we call the Graduated Independence Protocol. Humanity will enter a scheduled hibernation cycle, but this time with built-in awakening triggers. If the galaxy faces problems that genuinely require our intervention, the system will wake us up automatically. Think of it, Captain Santos added, as training wheels for galactic civilization. You've learned to ride the bicycle of interspecies cooperation. Now you need to prove you can do it without our assistance. The final ceremony took place on the anniversary of the Great Awakening. Representatives from every known species gathered to witness humanity's return to hibernation, but this time as willing participants in what they called the Galactic Development Cycle. As Alexis prepared to enter her cryogenic pod, she left behind what would become the most famous inscription in galactic history, carved into quantum stone that would last until the end of the universe. Don't wake the humans unless you're ready to laugh, learn and change everything you thought you knew about cooperation. Also, we left detailed instructions for maintaining the coffee machines. Trust us, you'll need them. The final transmission from the Second Chance as it entered hibernation mode was characteristically human in its combination of wisdom and humor. Galaxy, it's been fun. Remember to play nice, share your toys, and call us if you need help with anything you can't solve with kindness, caffeine, and collaborative thinking. Sweet dreams from all of us, and congratulations on becoming the galaxy we always knew you could be. As the human ship powered down its external systems and began its drift toward the galaxy's edge, every species in known space found itself custodian of the most successful civilization in galactic history. One built not on dominance or superior technology, but on the radical principle that every problem has a solution if you're willing to work together to find it. The galaxy slept peacefully that night, knowing that somewhere in the cosmic dark, 300 million humans were dreaming up solutions to problems that hadn't even been discovered yet. And in the quantum stone archives of every world, a simple truth was recorded. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or weapons or ancient wisdom. Sometimes it's just someone who wakes up every morning believing that today's problems are tomorrow's opportunities and that the best way forward is together. These particular sci-fi stories had taught the galaxy that true strength comes not from standing above others, but from lifting everyone up to stand together. If this story made you believe in the power of cooperation over competition, of kindness over conquest, and of collaborative dreaming over individual achievement, then perhaps you understand why the humans in our story chose to sleep peacefully. They knew that the galaxy they'd helped create would continue growing toward its highest potential, Like and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply believing that everyone deserves a chance to be their best selves, and share this with someone who needs to remember that every problem is just a solution waiting to be discovered.